forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. Today's block is called Petals. It's 12-inch finished. It's a variation of the signature block. And here is the diagram. Here are 4 blocks set block to block. And here are 35 blocks set in a quilt. It's just a sample. Patch A is a 2-inch by 4-inch finished rectangle. We'll cut 4.5-inch by 2.5-inch rectangles. We'll need 2 patches of each of the 4 accent fabrics. Here are the AccuQuilt dies that will cut this shape. Patch B is a 2-inch finished half square triangle. We cut 2 7/8-inch squares, and we can either leave them as squares or cut them in half diagonally once for 2 patches. And I'll explain this further to you because some we can't do the squares and some we can. So for each of these 4 accent fabrics, you'll need 4 patches or 2 patches plus 1 square. And I'll explain that when we piece it. So if you're cutting the 1 square from each, you just cut the square this size and you do not subcut it, because we're going to use the 2 at a time method to make half square triangles. For the background fabric, you'll need 8 patches or 4 squares. Here are the AccuQuilt dies that will cut these patches. For patch C, it's a parallelogram, and I don't know how to determine the size of a parallelogram. I just know how big to cut it, and we will go over the cutting instructions. We'll need 4 patches of the background fabric. I scribbled on here that if you have a piece of fabric that's 2.5 inches times 24 inches, which is a little more than half of a width of fabric, you can cut these 4 patches from your 2.5-inch strip. Here are the fabrics. These are the rectangles, patch A. We have 2 of each accent fabric. And these are the half square triangles, the B patches. Here's what I mean by either a square or a square and patches. Let me show you how we put this block together. We're going to use the parallelogram, and we need to have patches to sew on here. So we'll need to cut the patch that is just a triangle shape. So you cut the square and you cut it in half diagonally and you'll get 2 patches. And the 2 patches are what you need for the parallelogram. But you also need 2 half square triangles of the same fabric. And these are the 2 half square triangles you will get when you put 2 fabrics together and sew them 2 at a time. And there's a short tutorial on this. So that's why we cut either patches or patches and squares, because we need both in this instant. If it's too confusing to you, just cut all patches and then everything will make sense. Here are the parallelograms. I've got 1 sewn and here's 1 cut. I'm going to cut 2 more and show you how to cut them. You'll need a ruler with a 45-degree mark on it. And this is the 0 point where it starts 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3 this way. And I'm putting it to my left. So we're going to line the 45-degree mark on the bottom edge of this fabric. And I'm moving it over as far to the left as I can and still be on the fabric, because I'm going to cut off a 45-degree angle. And it doesn't really matter if you're further away than you need to be. It's just going to take a little bit more fabric, tiny bit more. So I'm just going to cut off this corner here. And now this is waist. Now we've cut, and I'm going to rotate this till the 45-degree mark is at the top. And I'm going to look for my 3, so here's the 0. I'm going to look for my 3 3/8-inch mark. I'm going to leave this 45-degree mark along the edge, the top edge now, and slide it over. Here's the 3-inch mark, and if I count 1, 2, 3/8, that's this little mark right here. So let me see if I can zoom in. Oh, I can't really. Let me move it over. So this is the 45 degree is along the top now. And this is the 3-inch mark, and there's 1, 2, 3/8. So the 3/8 is laying right along the edge of this line we just cut. Now we cut our parallelogram. So there's one. And then keep it positioned the same way with the 45-degree on the top, and look for your 3 3/8 here. 1, 2, 3, and then cut. This is what the unit is going to look like. We'll take the parallelogram and we sew one of the patches to either side, and that's when we get this unit. Then we'll take and make our half square triangles for each one, and they're going like this. Up here and down here. And then the rectangles will go like this. And this is our unit. We have one of these for each of the 4 fabrics. Then we put these 4 together to make the block. So step 1, we're going to use the B and C patches, which are the triangle patches, the half square triangle patches, and the parallelogram. And sew the units like this. So we'll take our parallelogram and we'll take our 2 patches, and they're going to be stitched like this. You flip them over and match the top edge. As soon as you flip it over, you'll see which edge needs to be matched, because it doesn't make sense the other way. So I matched the top edge here, and this little nub has been cut off because I used the folded corner clipper. And then you'll stitch 1/4 inch right here and press the seams open. Do the same thing on this side, flip it over, and then you'll know right away which side you have to match, this side, and stitch 1/4 inch here, and then press your seams open. Here's what they look like. So do that for all 4 of your parallelograms. For step 2, we're going to make the half square triangles with the B patches, and we'll make 2 half square triangles for each of the 4 accent fabrics. For this, I'm going to use the 2 at a time method to make the half square triangles, and if you're not familiar with this method, stay tuned for a short tutorial that shows you how. On the back side of the light fabric, we're going to draw a diagonal line, put the fabrics together, right sides together, and we're going to stitch on either side of the diagonal line. Here is the diagonal line drawn, and then the stitching on both sides. Now we cut this in half along the diagonal line. Then we have our 2 half square triangles. Press the seams open and cut off the nubs. And we have our half square triangles are done, and our parallelograms are done. Next, we'll take our patch A and our half square triangles and sew the half square triangles to the patch A like this. Sew them together and press the seams open, and do that for all 4 of your fabrics. For step 4, we're going to sew the units together like this, and we'll have 1 unit for each of the 4 fabrics. Pieces will go together like this. Just sew each together and press the seams open. Now we have all of our units done. We'll just look at the diagram and lay the pieces out. Now let's see. Okay, that looks right. Now we're just going to sew them together. We'll sew these 2 together, press the seams, and then sew the rows together. And when I just have 2 like this, I flip them over, pin it, and then take them to my sewing machine. And I know that the pin side is the one I need to stitch. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.